Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OTF Connects, our last week of the fall semester, and a great session tonight on TED Ed Talks. My name is Susan Watt, and I'll be your moderator for this evening. And our two presenters tonight are Elke Baumgartner and Megan Lowe, who are both educators in the Waterloo region. Elke's a digital literacy support teacher and a former colleague of mine, and Megan is a classroom teacher in Wellesley. And I know Elke and Megan have been working together, spreading these great ideas about TED Ed Talks with students. So we're excited to have them here tonight. It's their first webinar with OTF Connect. They've done this presentation at conferences near and far, and it's been really well received. So we're very excited that they're joining us tonight to share all of this with all of you. So welcome to all of you as well from across the province. We have a nice group tonight. We hope you'll help Elke and Megan along and participate by talking and sharing and using that chat. So I'm going to turn off my mic now and turn things over to Elke and Megan. Welcome.
All right, thanks, Susan. Wow, this is really interesting. Actually, this is our first time, like Susan said, to be doing a webinar where we can't see your reactions. So please join in on the sides if either we're speaking too loud or not loud enough, or if we're just going too fast. If you have any questions, please let us know so that we can change what we're doing here. So, as Susan mentioned, you are here for a webinar on an idea we're spreading, so TED Ed Talks. And throughout our webinar tonight, we'll be talking a little bit about either TED Ed Clubs or TED Ed Talks. The way the program is run, they do call it TED Ed Talks, but we definitely run it in our classroom, so using curriculum, and we go with TED Ed Talks, or like I said, TED Ed Clubs. So if we get them interchanged, don't worry, it's the same thing. So a little bit more maybe about us. So as Susan mentioned, I am Elke Baumgartner. I am a digital literacy support teacher in Waterloo region, which means basically I have 26 schools that I support with digital literacies. And so in the classroom with technology, or I usually support teachers and students. I'm also responsible for the library, so that means I'm organizing the collections, I'm adding new books to the libraries, taking books out, looking at what digital resources that we have, and then collaborating with teachers that way. So Megan and I met 4 years ago when I was in this role, and Megan was a classroom teacher in Kitchener, and she wanted to learn a little bit more about how to create a Twitter account. So that's how we first started, and then that's how TED Ed Clubs kind of went from there as well. I'll let Megan explain that a bit.
Hello, I'm Megan Lowe. A warm welcome to you all. Thanks for joining us in a busy December, I have no doubt. I'm a grade 3 teacher now, but 4 years ago I was a grade 5 teacher, and I saw one of the first tweets about TED Ed Clubs, that they were just beginning this new program. And I had always loved TED Talks, and so I emailed away. I found out as much as I could and decided to apply. And that's when I asked Elke to come in and help me out. So we worked collaboratively and co-hosted our first TED Ed Club 4 years ago. And ever since then, I've had a TED Ed Club in my classroom as part of my curriculum each year. And I absolutely love it, and I believe in it. Just last year, I applied to be a TED Ed innovator as well. So I'll share my innovation project in a little while, but I was excited at the thought of connecting children around the world and sharing ideas and growing ideas. So I pitched that to them, and they gave me 12 months of support. So I'm pretty excited to share that with you tonight as well. So not to go into too much detail about this webinar, but we hope that you walk away feeling confident about what a TED Ed Club is, how you could use it as an extracurricular club, but more importantly, how you could use it within your classroom.
So like any good teachers, we always kind of start with the end in mind for our workshops or lessons that we're doing. So this is kind of the end of what we'd like you to get out of this. So we definitely want you to have a better idea of what TED Ed resources are or what it can offer you. We want you to just be excited about that worldwide opportunity that it gives students. And then by the end, you'll also receive this long list of resources. So you'll receive a list from Megan and I, things that we use, but also the TED Ed resources that they offer are huge. There's so much to choose from in there. So first of all, what is a TED Ed Talk? They're short, powerful talks. They're 18 minutes or less. They all follow a similar pattern in that they really can't be much longer than that. TED was started in 1984, so that was over 30 years ago. And their idea was to incorporate technology, entertainment, and design. And you'll notice on this slide we've picked some of the more popular talks, I guess. Sir Ken Robinson is at the bottom there with creativity talk that he talks about. That one alone, me and I looked at it today, it has over 48 million views already. So TED is a very popular platform that people are using to gain information, and it's all about spreading those ideas. So what's an idea worth spreading? How can we spread these ideas? All right, so let's get into this a little bit. Who is it that's joining us tonight? So just for us to get a little bit better of an idea, if you can introduce yourself in the chat box. So just tell us, you know, where you are maybe and what you're teaching. Or if anybody wants to grab the microphone and add a little bit in, we can do that as well. Awesome. Okay, so one of the reasons we're asking for this is to kind of see, and the next slide will help us a little bit more too, but to kind of gauge which grade you're teaching, maybe which subject areas. Oh, this is awesome. We have some French teachers with us. This is great. We are starting, actually, last year, me and I with a couple other colleagues, put together like a what's next. So what do we do after we've run all these great TED clubs? And we ran a board-wide event. And then this year we have some French immersion teachers. Oh, and they're here. Hey, Shamira, joining us. And we're trying to run one in French as well. This will definitely work in any language. The TED Talks that we've previewed are only in English right now. They do have subtitles, though, as well, so they are in other languages. All right, good. Looks like we've got a great mix. This next slide, then, that we're going to look at, we're going to use the tools that Susan had showed a little bit earlier there, just about the icons and the clip arts. And this is basically, again, just to get an idea which division most of us are in here tonight. So if you can grab one of the tools and then just put it onto the page here. Awesome. Looks like we've got a pretty good balance here. There's one primary, which is great. Megan teaches grade 3 right now. Okay, so here's another aside. We were just realizing, you know, how are you going to tell the difference between who's speaking? But we're thinking it's pretty obvious just based on our accents. So Megan does teach primary right now and has used it with her primary students, and we'll show you some of those examples. Works excellent in junior and intermediate. Senior, we're glad that you're part of this as well. We have, from some of the workshops that we've done, so through Google's summits, we have had some people from senior tried it in their schools, and we've actually heard back from them this year, and they're loving it. So it definitely fits in with curriculum, fits in, you can run this as a club, but we've always run it within our classrooms.
All right, so TED Ed began as the brainchild of a guy named Logan Smalley, and what he wanted to do was to amplify student voice and to provide students with a platform to share some of their best ideas. So I think that's the most powerful reason that I like TED Ed, is because it gives you a great structure, great resources, great support to really allow students to delve into what they're passionate about, what is important to them, and share ideas to help change the world. Share ideas and spread ideas that are worthwhile. And so it's all about that. It's all about developing good ideas, giving feedback to one another, and really exploring what's important to students. And yeah, that's what we're going to share with you tonight. I think one of the most powerful things is that there's a real reason for, there's a real purpose for students, a reason to share and explore an idea, and that's because you come up with a talk by the end. And I'll just mention now that it doesn't have to necessarily be a talk. It could also be an animation as well. So it's presenting their idea. But I think the most important part is the process rather than the end product. It is the process of working out what's important to them, articulating that clearly, giving examples and explaining that with clarity, and building from feedback given, and also providing others with feedback. And I think that's the best part of the process, and that's where the best learning happens, is in your classroom or in your club, you know, as these students go about these 13 lessons. So as I mentioned, there's 13 lessons, and we'll share the link. They're completely free, and when you sign up, you get access to them straight away. A really neat story is the second little bubble to the left there. There's a picture of a boy, and it's got TED award-winning platform. There's a great talk by Ashton Coffer. He's a young guy, an elementary student, and I saw him present actually on the TED stage in New York, and his talk was a young inventor's plan to recycle. And he had this idea, he saw so much wasted styrofoam, and he really wanted to recycle that. He saw what a waste it was, he saw it thrown into garbage, and he said, this is crazy. So he connected with help, he connected and tried to find a way to recycle. And they shared his talk on the TED platform, TED.com, and he's had over 1.1 million views. So that's a really motivating, there's real audience, you know, and it's a real it's a wide audience, it's worldwide, and it's potential to be huge. That's motivating for students.
So the other two pieces there on the end, the Global TED Network, really this is, there are clubs all over the world. They're running them in English. Sometimes they're run by students. So if you're a high secondary teacher, you don't have to be the leader. It could be a student that's organizing and running it. And then they also have these great events, these TED Ed Connect events, where you're connecting with other clubs, you're pitching your ideas. We'll show you a little bit about that later on too. And then the TED organization is always part of it as well. That's the really great thing about this this platform too, is that there are so many people there that are willing to support and just provide a little bit extra. And then there's TED Ed weekends, and I'll let Megan speak a little bit about this. I've never been to one, but she has.
Yeah, so fortunately, TED has some money behind them. So twice a year, I think they're aiming for, they ask some of the best TED Ed club speakers, so some of our students, to come to New York. They pay for expenses for the student and the chaperone, and they put them on the TED stage. It's a smaller stage, but it's still a TED stage in New York City at their headquarters. And they live stream this TED Ed weekend around the world, and they film it. So that Ashton Coffer was actually filmed on the TED Ed weekend, and then later his talk was placed on the TED website. So it's pretty exciting. I don't know that there's been a Canadian student yet, but let's go for it, I say.
All right, so Susan will be putting in the chat room there quickly. There we go. What we'd like you to do is take a look at this short little video. It's only about 2 minutes, and it's Ted's way of explaining what TED Ed clubs are about. So if you can pop out, take a look at the video, and then if you can come back in and then just indicate with the green check mark in the main room there and let us know that you're done, and then we'll keep going.
So for those of you who are new to the OTF Connect webinars, the screen, the whiteboard of Elke and Megan's is really just screenshots, so we can't show videos on there. So the link that I put in the chat, if you click on that, it will just open up the TED Talk in a browser on your own computer. So you'll have it open as well as the Blackboard window open, and then just come on back when you're finished.
All right, it looks like most people have had a chance to watch it. So that's just a little bit of a taste to see what it is that TED Ed clubs can be about. And you'll notice that they've used a number of different clubs in their actual presentation here in their little video that they're using. So we'll just keep going on here. So one of our questions that we get asked a lot is, well, why do you do TED Ed clubs? So what's the point behind it? So we thought we'd come up with a few ideas to help you out in case, somebody else asks you, why would you do this? So it is for students for the ages of 8 to 18, and it's all over the world. It's a great way to connect with others so that we have a larger audience. It's not just our own students in our classroom. It's not just working with or showing parents what we're doing, but it's really about setting that stage and providing that greater audience. This one works really well. There's a lot of educators in Ontario, especially right now, that are doing the 20% time or Genius Hour. If you do something like this, this is a great way to showcase what it is that students have done during that time. So instead of just getting up and doing a presentation or having a poster board or something, why not get them to change their presentation then into a TED Talk? So it's something that they're passionate about already, something that they're really invested in, that they know a lot about. So why not just get them to do a talk about it? Plus, it builds on their presentation skills. So when somebody has to present something and we've given them all the tools and leading up to the end, that it really helps with those skills. The other thing we should mention here too, I guess, is that it's not just about the end, the end piece, I guess, product, but it really is about that process. It's about working through everything from the start to the beginning, from the start to the ending, and it's about the process.
It's really easy to use technology and have that enhance. We have the Google products in our board. So our students were writing their talks in the earlier stages using Google Docs and then commenting, and it was a fantastic way because Elkie was only at my school once a week to help me with my first club. That she would go home and each day we were logging in and giving comments, and these students just ran with it. These students were working nonstop. Each evening they would go home and pitch their ideas or pitch their talk and add to those each night, as well as doing their slides from home and obviously sharing with Connect Weeks. It's similar to a web chat, like a Skype call or something like that, where they have their own product called Blue Jeans that students can talk to each other from different clubs around the world as well. There's lots of excellent exemplars. I'm not talking just about TED.com and the TED Talks on the TED stage because they feel like almost too much for students, but there's lots of student exemplars. TED Ed clubs have a YouTube channel with hundreds of talks from students around the world, and so it's so easy to see, the vast variety of ideas that are out there, and see that it's students just like you or I, or students just like those in your classroom. So it's very relatable for students. Perhaps the best thing is that it gives students a voice. And I feel like the school where Elkie and I worked together, it was a needy school. And a lot of students started saying, I don't have any ideas worth spreading. I'm not an expert at anything. And I remember sitting down and having the most amazing class meetings that I've ever experienced. There was one girl, Lisa, she was one of the last to pitch her possible talk ideas. And she said, I don't know, I'm not an expert at anything. And Elkie and I were able to sit back, and the rest of the class started asking questions. They said, what sports have you played? And Lisa said, well, I haven't played any sport. And they said, well, surely you must have been in a club or an activity like Girl Guides. And she said, no. And they said, well, they kept asking her actually over the course of 2 or 3 days, what's your favorite food? Do you love cooking? What's your favorite color? Who's your favorite movie star? They were really trying to pick her brain and help her out. And eventually someone said, what about that project we did in grade 3? The one where we actually got to choose our own country to research? And Lisa said, well, I wasn't here in grade 3. And someone else said, well, where were you? And Lisa said, well, I think that was 2 schools ago. And they said, well, what school was that? She goes, well, I think that wasn't in Kitchener. I think that was in Toronto. And they said, well, how many schools have you been to? And Lisa started to get her fingers out and started counting. And she'd been to 8 different schools by grade 5. And the most magical thing happened. Someone actually jumped up and said, you're an expert at moving schools. And she smiled. You know, she glowed actually, and she said, yes, I am an expert at moving schools. And then that's what her talk was about. And that moment right there was gold. You know, they were the moments that we cherished, that we found that this was the most profound experience, because we were validating everyone's experience.
Okay, and then Megan had another class, so same school. And then there was another girl in this class, and she really didn't know what to do. And so it was through those meetings and talking with the whole class about what it was that they were passionate about, what it was that they knew, what did they have so much information about. And this one girl said, you know, she would tell a story about what it was when she first came to the school. And she said, you know, like, I'd go around and I didn't understand how to speak English. But what happened was she went out and was outside at recess. She says, I don't know what's going on. People just keep hitting me and they're running away. And she says, you know what, I didn't really get it until I realized that what they wanted to do is they were playing tag. And her big talk then became, well, it doesn't really matter what language you speak or where you come from, you know how you can play tag. And so that's what her whole talk was about. It was about learning how to communicate with others through a game and through something simple like tag, because she could understand that. And it wasn't about anybody hitting her or running away or anything. It was simply they wanted to play with her, and then that's how they were going to make that connection. So we like this because it's not always about something that you have to research. So the kids don't have to have a project or an idea that they have to research. It could be about something that they've experienced, something that really they're an expert in, like Lisa with moving from one place to the next. This other girl with how does she communicate with others when she doesn't really understand the language. And then we had another girl in that class. It was a grade 5 class, and she was the only one in the class that had braces. And it took us a while to say, you know what, you're an expert. Nobody else has had braces. You can tell people what the experience is of wearing braces and what you have to do to clean your teeth, or what's the next step. Or she had like this harpsichord, I just remember this, and so she could explain that. So she actually did a little bit of research then as well, but her research was talking to the orthodontist to see what it was that he would suggest. So it was really like that. So it could be something they researched, but we really felt it was about the student's voice and about what they wanted to talk about.
Okay, here's Jonas. He's a grade 3 student from my class last year. And Jonas, this is an interesting talk because initially I wasn't sure that everyone would find an idea that they were happy with, that they could develop into a talk. So I thought I'd link it to our science unit. So we started with plants and soils and and it was around Earth Day, so there's a lot to talk about how we can change the earth, and you know, there's a lot that potentially students would be passionate about recycling and things like that. But Jonas went in a completely different direction, and he decided to talk about thrift stores and the importance of thrift stores. And that was important to him because his grandparents both volunteered at a local thrift store. So we'd love you to look at his talk and listen to it. The link is already in the chat. It goes for about 4 minutes, and we'll do the same thing. If you could come back in and give us a check mark when you're ready.
Yeah, we're just noticing the comments too about nobody having sound, and that's just because we had also turned off our volume, just so that people could watch Jonah's talk there about thrift shops. And it looks like we've got more than half people done watching, so I'll just keep talking here. So one of the people commented, I'm sorry for whose name it was, so that it's nice that it doesn't have to be a research topic. This one, you'll notice, wasn't what originally started off as a research topic. Definitely can be. And so we'll just keep going from there. So once again, we've mentioned this before, TED Ed clubs definitely are all over the world. You'll notice all the darker red spots on the world map there. So there's 4,000 plus TED Ed clubs in over 130 countries right now.
I think at any given time they say there's about 200 active clubs that are in the middle of their club cycle, so going through the 13 lessons they provide. So that's a pretty good drawing pool for connecting with people. And they have these Global Connect weeks. There's actually one on right now, and next week it's the last for the year. And you sign up, and there's a variety of time slots. And if you can get in really early in the day, you can get some neat places that aren't just in North America, but the time change can make that a little difficult with the hours of a school day. But we were able to connect with students in Israel, and we've had some in India before, a lot from the United States, and a few others in Canada. And I think the biggest takeaway from a Connect call, which is really a web chat with about 4 windows of 4 other clubs, and you turn your mic off and one group speaks at a time, is it gives those students a sense of a worldwide audience. You know, and it also provides an opportunity for 2 or 3 of your students to ask them questions and maybe gather a bit of data about, you know, what they're passionate about, or a question they might have about what pets they have or their favorite foods, that kind of thing. One of my students did a talk on hexadactyly. So she had a rare disorder where she actually was born with an extra digit on each hand. And so she asked each Global Connect call if anyone had experienced that. Unfortunately, they hadn't, but it would have been neat if we could have connected with some other student in that way.
All right, let's point out a few things here. We find that this doing TED Ed talks really fits in really well with using technology. And like Megan mentioned earlier, we are a Google board, so we used a lot of the Google products, that being Google Docs, for them to create their talks and then for us to give feedback. So us being Megan and I as the teachers, but also the students. What we noticed was really powerful was when other students were reading what their colleagues, what their classmates were writing, and then giving them suggestions too. So things like, I don't really know what you mean by Tilikum, the killer whale. Like, who is this? Can you explain this a little bit more? Or some of them would say, oh, I like how you talked about Bigfoot, because I know that you believe Bigfoot is real, but I didn't know this. So with our Google Docs, it was neat because kids could give that feedback, but then they could also make their changes at any time. Because me coming from the library, we also brought in the research skills. So if there were some people that were wanting to research, we always started off with our library as our first resource or our first tool. So either in the library, so the physical books, or the online portion of our library website. And then we also looked at some students when they were wanting to do their talks wanted to use visuals. So we looked at copyright then. So this is a really great way of teaching that digital citizenship about what it is that we want kids to be using. And then we talked about how we don't just want to use any pictures. We want to make sure that they're copyright friendly, that we can use the pictures. Or we said even, let's take our own pictures and let's use those. So then we used Google Slides. Not all of our kids in the end wanted to actually have slides up behind them talking. Most of them did, I think, especially in that first year. But so they could use that. We also had one student who didn't want to use the Google Slides at all, but he liked using his iPad. So with him, we said, you know, do a keynote, whatever works for you, where we can get those visuals if you wanted to or not. And then the actual presentation. So we worked on recording, editing, we used animation, we recorded over and over again. So I'm just looking at the question here. Kathleen's wondering, how would you share them with each other? So with, I'm thinking you're talking about the actual talks that they were working on. And so with that, we, via TED-Ed specific Google Classroom, we actually just shared them with, at that time we didn't have Google Classroom. You could absolutely do it like that. We had a folder, and so everybody just put their talks in there so that everybody else could look at them. Or, thanks for giving, thanks Kathleen. We actually had them just share with 3 buddies and then with the teachers. So whatever you would want to do, really, it's up to you. We decided with the 3 buddies that they wanted to share their talks with. It didn't mean that they couldn't share with more. We also actually had them share it with their parents as well. So not physically give each other a copy, but we had them practice it at home. We had their parents give them feedback as well. So it was a really great way to tie in the home life and see if parents could give anything. Just remember, what we wanted here was not about the end process. It was really about the process getting there and about their talks, but using that feedback to make it a little bit better. Thanks, Kathleen, for putting in the question. Please feel free, anybody else, to add any other questions in if we're missing something.
All right. Before you begin, I really can't stress this enough, and I think Elke will agree with me about building class culture. If you're wanting children to share, or even young adults, if you're thinking secondary, if you are wanting them to share things that they're passionate about, things that are important to them, you have to have that safe environment. And I feel like that I spend most of the year building up to my TED-Ed unit of work. Right now I'm doing a whole lot of, we do authors share each day, so 3 students share their writing. We're about to do poetry, and I want them to be standing up and sharing that as well, somewhat in preparation for talking later on and having a more formal TED presentation. An excellent resource on giving effective feedback is something called Austin's Butterfly. If you Google that, it's a beautiful example of how students can really propel ideas forward and improve ideas when they give specific and timely feedback. It's short, it's worthwhile. Someone else is using it, fantastic. And yeah, speaking practice, any public speaking opportunities, I would always put my hand up for my class to help out. And I think this is a really important point. Establish your curriculum connections. Decide what you want to assess and what you don't. Personally, for me, I love them getting feedback from a wide variety of sources because I feel that builds community. And I feel like that really excels those ideas forward and really develops them well. So I don't mark the idea, or I actually don't mark the writing because people help with that. However, I do give them an oral communication mark because that's happening in the class as they're presenting. And we create ads. Towards the end of them developing this talk, I asked them to create a short ad that will inform others about what their talk is about and encourage them to listen and watch their talk. And that becomes part of their media mark. So I think plotting that out early and seeing what curriculum connections that you want to create is important. I think you could easily connect it to science or social studies as well. Term 2 works for me because that's when my class culture is solid. That's when I've built this caring, supportive community. And last of all, we've got their apply to TED-Ed early. These guys are pretty interesting. They're continually refining and improving their product. And only just recently, they've given all the resources away as soon as you apply. So what happens is you go to ed.ted.com and we'll give you that that link later in a later slide. And you fill out an application form. I think they really check to see that you're a teacher. And then they give you access within about 24 or 48 hours to there's a leader guidebook, there's a student ideas book, and they're really well laid out. They're excellent. It's all free. But there is a catch. If you want to upload your student talks, you upload them and you get a private YouTube URL for each student. They only allow you to do that, to upload the talks, so it gets, and it also gets a little logo in the corner of TED Ed Clubs, which my students really like and parents really like as well. You need to have each student sign a media release form, and you need to participate in a web interview style question and answer with them. So TED wants to know who you are. They want to answer your questions. They're quite particular about their brand, but they're very friendly and very helpful. So there is that little hoop to jump through. Yes, you get the resources for free, but if you want to upload talks later, they do ask that you fulfill the legal requirements of getting a media release signed by a parent, and that they talk you through, you know, what the rules and specifications are. And it's simple things like not accepting money, by using their logo respectfully and not altering it, those sorts of things.
And so Megan mentioned she doesn't use hers as a writing mark, but I have worked with some grade 8 teachers, and they've chosen to use it as a writing mark. So really, once again, it's just up to what you want and how you're fitting into your curriculum. So another part of what you need to get started. So we talked about you need a leader. So the leader is basically the classroom teacher. If you're in secondary, it could also be a student. So we've seen clubs where they've had students that want to run the club, so they just have to be 13 years or older. They participate in the same thing that the elementary teacher would, and then they just set up the club from there. Do we have success criteria for TED Talks? We do somewhere, and I forget if we've added them into this or not. But if you, sorry, that's okay, thanks, Diane. If you reach out to us via email to send one to myself or to Megan, we can send you some. So we've found some, or Megan has some from her TED Ed Innovators that you can use, and it's about the actual talks, and then there are some for the video presentation. If I send them to Susan, excellent. That's what we'll do then. We'll send them to Susan, and then she can add them to the resource page. Thanks. So, okay, so we identify club leader, complete the online application. Megan's talked about that. Participate in the video conference. And sorry, that was really quick. We have said that as well. Really, the video conference is about 25 to 30 minutes. It's quick, and it just goes through some of the steps that you need to remember. Hey, Will, nice to see you.
All right. And I've got to say hi to Will. He's also a TED Ed innovative educator, an amazing guy. And if you need any help for TED Ed clubs and you can't find Elkie or me, Will would be more than willing to help. So Susan's just added a link. This is the first video resource that they give you in the leader pack, and it's outstanding. And I think it just gives you a sense of just the quality of the resources that TED are providing. When I show this video, the room lights up, and you see the enthusiasm, and this is the start of an amazing journey. So if you don't mind popping out and clicking on the link, and then giving us a check mark once you've watched the short video, I think 2 minutes.
All right, it looks like most people are getting to be done. It's just a short little video. It's one of those things that's just, sparking that curiosity in kids again, and it's what really we find that they get drummed up about, they get really excited about. So looking at this next slide right now, we're going to think about the video that you just watched, and in the end it asks you, what are 3 things that you're truly passionate about? So think about things, and once again, it can be something that you have researched yourself, or it could be just something that you're really good at. And we're asking you a lot here. We get that it's, you know, December, it's only Tuesday night, it's late o'clock, it's after 8 o'clock. If you can, on this screen, on the sidebar there where Susan had showed you earlier about the tools, if you can grab a text and throw in some ideas here about either 3 things that you're truly passionate about, could even be just one. Or we've also given you some other springboards here, like your favorite hobby is. I've always been fascinated by. If you can just add in a few thoughts there, and we'll see what we're coming up with here as a group. Or if you're not wanting to put it into this actual slide, you just put it in the chat box. If anybody wants to grab the microphone, go ahead and we can do that as well.
I can see Will's feeling passionately about the Blackboard platform. Come on, Will. What are you passionate about beyond that? Student voice. Fantastic. Sewing and knitting. Teacher burnout. Does it have to make it on 3 weeks out? Competitive swimming. Sick Not Weak campaign. Mud hero. Yeah, wow. Science and the Way the World Works. If you haven't already, TED.com has some brilliant playlists that are worth checking out. There's some fascinating talks on science. Another place to check out, speaking of science resources and following that fascination, is TED Ed Lessons. So if you go to ed.ted.com, and don't worry, we do give you that link, there's fantastic short animations that can be used in the classroom or can just be used to spark your curiosity and your learning as well. There's quite a few of them. They're adding more all the time. I want to say dozens of them now.
So what we're doing right now is we're just basically taking you through what the first lesson or first session that TED Ed gives you, and it's watching the video and then thinking about what you're truly passionate about. Oh, inequities, absolutely. I love seeing these. These are great. You can see how varied our interests are, and there's only like 10 of us, I think, in there. Oh no, there's about 20 of us or so in here right now. This is just the starting off point. It doesn't mean that you have to, or that your students have to stick with these ideas, but really it's just about getting those ideas going and those juices flowing as to what could be some of the ideas that we talk about. Thank you to everybody for sharing there.
All right, so after you've signed up, you'll get 13 explorations, and they're broken up quite nicely. So we just looked at the beginning of Exploration 1, Sparking Curiosity. In the middle, it's all about developing an idea that's worth spreading or sharing with the world. The middle explorations 5 to 8 are about developing that into a talk. You know, developing that into something that is detailed and makes sense and has good examples and good visuals. And then explorations 9 to 13 are about presenting those ideas effectively. And something that we haven't really mentioned yet, which I want to explore more, is animations. TED Ed has this great animation team that do the TED Ed lessons that I just mentioned. They also give excellent resources as part of your leader pack. Sharing with how to green screen, how to do a whole lot of different animations for students to share their ideas. So it's not only just an oral presentation, and there's some really neat examples as well on the TED Ed Club's YouTube channel of, you know, one that stood out to me was a student that just wrote on a notebook and then turned each page. And as they turned the page, they spoke. And it was about bullying, and it was incredibly powerful, even though we didn't see this student's face at all. You can be as simple as you like. You can just be, the teacher holding up an iPad, or you can take it a lot further, and I'm thinking high school even with sound, with video from a number of angles, an editing team as well. As simple or as complex as you like, and they give tons of resources to support you in whichever way you choose.
And then after that, for that first lesson about looking at what we're passionate about, seeing if we can pull out things that the students already know about, a lot about, or what they really want to know about. Remember, this is about ideas that are worth sharing. So the next lesson takes you then into, what makes a great idea great. And then this picture is just taken from a grade 8 class. We watched a number of the TED Ed videos, or the TED Talks. And then they came up with ideas themselves as to what they thought made these ideas great, what makes them worth sharing. Why are these messages worth spreading? Don't forget that it always takes time for ideas to grow. This is not something that you can do really quickly if you're doing it really well, we believe. So take your time. This is a big process. Once again, it's about the process. It's not about necessarily the end in mind. This is something that kids remember from year to year. One of the girls in Megan's class from last year, from 4 years ago, is still, we just ran into her mother the other day, and she says she's still at home right now writing new TED Talks.
One little tip that I do have is often students at the beginning will come to me and say, well, I'm passionate about pandas. And my big question to them is, so what? What do you want to tell us about pandas that is worth sharing? What do we need to tell the world to make life better for pandas? Or what is it about them that fascinates you and that you find amazing? So that so what question is very important. You want to narrow it down from just a generalized research project telling you everything about pandas or everything about Australia. The best talks have a through line, have a message that they weave throughout the entire talk and holds their ideas together. So that would be something that I do early on, and I have students justify why this idea is important and why it's worth sharing with others. All right, Sprout, here's my baby. This is my TED Ed Innovation Project. You can find it at sproutideas.net. And I'm actually going to pop out now and show you a little bit about Sprout. It's a place where students can go to pitch any and all of their possible talk ideas. Thanks, Will Gawley. He's calling at the bomb. I wanted to create a safe space, and I wanted to create a space where students from all around the world could share their ideas and grow ideas together. So the first thing I did was made it so that we collect no data on students. Students do not need to log in or create an account, only the club leader. And the club leader, as soon as they create an account and authenticate it by clicking in their email, they will turn up in the drop-down box. And you can find your teacher's name, I think. No, Will Gawley's not in here, he sometimes is. But if I click on Craig Zimmer, I can just begin to type my idea if I was in Craig's club and click send it. I'm not sure if you can see me typing. Nothing happens until Craig moderates that. So he will go in and he'll actually get an email confirmation, and he will go and he'll say, yep, this is an idea that's appropriate, this is an idea from my club, and he will moderate it. And then it's in the feedback section for the world to see and the world to give feedback to. So right now there are 5 clubs that are active and that have ideas. Nihar Suresh is leading a club from India. So if you scroll down, you can see all of her wonderful ideas from her students. And I can expand on these. So this one here, the pitch is in grey, and then I can click on previously submitted feedback to see what people have already given, thought to and given feedback, and then I can add my own underneath. There's feedback starters to help students focus what they want to say, and then they'll click, once you've given some feedback, you just click submit at the bottom, and again, nothing is seen until Neha, the club leader, moderates it, and then it will come up for that student to see, and actually anyone to see. There's one more section I want to show you, and that's review. Here's where you'll find every idea ever pitched on Sprout, and we have hundreds now, and it's growing constantly. So it's becoming a really neat place for students who are struggling with ideas to go and get inspiration. Just quickly, I'll share my club, Mrs. Lowe from Wellesley. Here's all my students' ideas, and this one in particular, this has 9 pieces of feedback. It's about picky eating, and you can see that it's the average star rating is 4.33, pretty strong idea. And you can scroll down and see that Ontario, Canada features heavily. That's classmates and other schools in my board that gave feedback. But also, this student has feedback from Romania and New York as well. So if you're interested in doing a TED Ed Club, I would love you to use Sprout. I think it's a great space, a safe space as well, for students to grow ideas together and to collaborate on a worldwide scale. All right, we'll just head back to our Blackboard presentation. Bear with us. Yes, Alba, I see your comment. Yes, I have a grade 3 class, so that was grade 3 students. And TED Ed clubs can be from students aged 8 to 18, so grade 3 fits perfectly. We've included slides, just to be on the safe side, we included some screenshots from Sprout, just in case our jump out onto the website didn't work, so there's just a few extra pages for you. Yeah, this is really short. You can watch it in your own time. This is little Megan, and she was in my club last year. This is one of the ads that students created, and her idea actually was in response to our science unit. She feels that students should say no to fast food meals, and particularly the toys that come with them. So she collected all the toys that she had, and she surveyed our class, and she found out that most students play with them while they're eating and not for much longer, and very few, if any, students played with them after a week. So then we went into the grade 8 class, and we said, guys, we only use numbers up to about 1,000 in grade 3. Can you put this in context? Here's 10 toys. This is how much space it takes up. We rang our local fast food restaurant and found out they sold 1,000 a week. And we know there's about 300 of these stores in Canada. What does this mean? And they told us that the toys would fill a classroom in just a couple of weeks, just the toys from fast food restaurants in Canada. And so the grade 8s did a beautiful job of putting those numbers in perspective for us. And as a result, the children in our class started saying no to those toys. I think that's a great idea worth spreading.
So once again, that's just an extra that Megan has started doing as well. So it's for the students to feel comfortable, throwing a pitch, giving a pitch for an idea using technology, and also to hear their own voices. So we'll just keep moving on here. So some tips and tricks about what we've learned maybe from doing TED Ed clubs for a number of weeks, or a number of years now, sorry. When we first started, we did about 2 days a week. So I think we had about an hour to 2 each time, and we started in January and went right till May, I would say, with the writing, and then trying to figure it out. So we did definitely 2 weeks. We let them film it a number of times. So kids would get up in front of the class, do their talk, and then they'd say, you know what, we think we can do it better. Can we do it one more time? It's like, yep, go ahead. So they're giving themselves their own feedback as well as they're going along. On the left-hand side there, we encourage research from a variety of sources. So once again, we don't have to research anything, but some of the other ways they could research was just, one girl did interviews. She interviewed the grade 1s about who could read in their class and if they wanted to start a grade 1 reading club or something like that. So that was just done by a survey. People interviewed other people, like the one girl interviewed her orthodontist about other ideas about braces. So we dealt a lot with personal experience, observations. But don't be afraid to research information as well. In our first year, we had one girl that did black holes. Her talk in grade 5 was 18 minutes long, all researched. So there's a variety that you could do, really.
I always put up on my board, I don't know if the picture's coming out clearly for you, but a column stuck, I need help. The middle column says, I'm working or editing on my TED Talk, and the third is, I'm ready to share my talk and get feedback. And so students will go out into the hall, they'll grab an iPad and film each other, they'll read their talks to each other, and it flows really well. Do you know what, Alba? About a link to the final presentation. TED-Ed just changed their media release. Because of COPA in the States, there's a lot of laws around collecting data and information on children under 13. So they just had their legal team redo their media releases, and hers was released and then it was taken down. And I'm in the process of getting them re-signed and back up, Alba. So I'll let you know on my Twitter feed when they are up. I'm hoping they're up in the next few weeks. Yeah. I personally promise that I'll film them as many times as they need. So it makes it a little long for me, but if they're investing the effort, I feel that I need to invest the effort too. Our grade 7 teacher liked to give deadlines and due dates. You know, you need to have an idea by X. You need to be, finished exploration 4 by this date. And that helped keep her class on track. We also trialed TED Buddies. So the grade 7s partnered with us, and it was fantastic because grade 3 students were saying, hey, I don't understand that, and the grade 7s needed to be clearer. And the older students for my young ones were giving some great ideas for what else, how they could expand their talk and other things that they could probably add. It's messy. Embrace the chaos because it's worth it. Diane, great ideas. How do you encourage your shy and quiet students? Do you know what, Diane? We'll talk about differentiation soon, but we also film some students privately. But creating that class culture, that safe, caring environment, and having those class meetings and giving students time to develop their ideas and share and talk to their family about it and conference with us, that took a long time. I almost felt like the developing of the idea and having everyone with a great idea that's worth spreading took almost as long as the talks for the little ones, for the 8 and 9-year-olds. And don't discount that because you want everyone engaged and invested and really happy with their idea. Time, energy, and a range of human resources to help you. All right, so talk or animation, I think we've covered that. The possibilities for animation are excellent, as well as the way that you film students.
Yeah, we're just actually looking at this slide with all of you right now, and I think we've hit on some of this as well. So we said you can definitely use this for science or social studies as a starting point. How much detail are you expecting? Really, talks can be short. Some of the best talks we've had have only been under 2 minutes, so they don't have to be long, depending on the age of the kids that you have as well. And then filming, the first year we did this, we filmed in front of the whole class. But it can be done in small groups. I worked with a grade 8 class, or 2 grade 8 classes. They were terrified of filming in front of each other, so they did small groups, like 2 or 3, and they just rotated through in different areas. You can also do it individually. I know Megan talked about filming one boy during the nutrition breaks or during recess time, and that worked out really well for him. We notice that it's coming up to 10 to 9, so we're going to flip through these last couple of slides fairly quickly, hopefully. We've talked about curriculum links, so make sure that you've got the curriculum links if you're doing this in your class time. A lot of these are pulled from grade 3, and these are the ones that Megan uses for her media literacy and her oral communication. We have this one video right now we'd love to share with you. Susan's put it in here. Take a look at this later on. This is one of a very, very powerful talk. This girl, Melissa, did a talk 4 years ago when Megan and I first started this. She's the one that did her talk on black holes. 18 minutes, had the whole thing memorized. Then she's gone on to a different school, and that teacher had come to one of Megan and my talks and thought, you know what, I want to try this with my kids too. And Melissa was in her class, and this was grade 8 last year, and this teacher did it once a week and did it part of their language, and it was an all-year kind of project for them. And then Melissa gave this talk. So this is her second TED Ed Club kind of talk. And it blew us, Megan and myself, away because we didn't realize the social anxieties that she had. And then for this 13-year-old girl to get up in front of a number of people, like 200 people we had, and to give this talk was really, really powerful. The other thing that's interesting about this talk I should point out too is that she created a video that was playing in the background. So there were images, there was motion in the background, and she just talked. So she kept talking over the video, so the video was silent in the background. When she presented this in her class, she had decided that she didn't want to get up in front of the class, but she actually recorded this. So she had the video playing, and then she recorded her voice. It was audio, and then this is what she showed the class. And then when we did our big TED Ed event last year in our board, people applied to give a TED Talk, and she did as well. And then she actually got up in front of a school auditorium of 200 kids and gave this talk. So honestly, if you have time, take a look at this one. This one's phenomenal.
All right, so if you don't decide, or it feels too much to create an event board-wide like we did, and we really only did that last year. We really only had the confidence and the energy to do that last year. There's other ways that students are featured. There's a weekly TED Ed Clubs newsletter, and there's always student talks featured there, and also they'll ask questions to clubs like favorite foods and things. I highly recommend joining the Facebook TED Ed Club community. It's a private group, and it's for the club leaders, and it's a great resource. Often leaders will get on there and ask questions, ask if other clubs want to connect with them, and it's a very welcoming community. We really are like a family. YouTube channel, tons of exemplars, and a great resource for you to use in your class. And then TED.com is where the official TED conference talks are hosted, and also some other things like Ashton Kofter's talk. The next slide, I want to share this story just in the last few moments that we have, is about Annika Paulson. Annika started out as a TED Ed Club member in a high school, and she did a fantastic talk and was asked to go to TED Ed Weekend. And Chris Anderson walked in, he's the head guy that started TED, and he said, I want Annika on the stage in Vancouver, on the real TED stage. And he invited her, and she took to the stage and was absolutely brilliant, had a standing ovation at the end, and her talk is now on that website, and it has over, I think, nearly 900,000 views. It is outstanding, and I urge you to take a look at that, especially if you're a high school teacher looking at exemplars. I love the progression from how she started in her classroom, just being filmed once, to her on the TED stage and getting that standing ovation. They're all the ways that TED is active in social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. Read alouds fit in perfectly.
And these are just some of the ones that we've used with our classes. So sometimes we don't always need to use a TED video, but we can use a great read aloud, especially with the younger kids, even grade 8s we found. Sorry, we keep speaking to the elementary, but that's, I think, because of where we're connected. So just for getting those ideas going, right? It can be the wordless books as well. there's the link for if you want to start your own club. So it's ed.ted.com/clubs. And then you simply go on there, you log in, and then you can create your account. You get the resources right away, like Megan said, and then you sign up for your webinar, and then you're good to go after that. So, are there any questions that we might have missed along the way? Anything that you're still wondering about? If you don't have any right now, but if you ever come up with any questions, feel free to contact me or myself or Will Gurley, who is in here as well, via email, on Twitter. We can try to answer your question.
Oh, you can often find Will in particular, but sometimes me when my own children aren't too busy. There's a TED Ed chat on Tuesday nights, and it's a great place to connect with other educators and talk about TED Talks and talk about ideas worth spreading with interested educators.
All right, well, thanks so much for joining us. Susan, I think we're turning it over to you now. Oh, wait,
Yes.
There's a question. Re-register? Do we need to start the club right away? No, you don't need to start the club right away. They do ask you for timelines as to when you're wanting to run it.
Yeah, I actually signed up, and I don't plan on starting my club for until January, February, and they're really open to me extending my club cycle. They normally expect it to be about 6 weeks, but I take longer. Their timelines are very flexible. Permission, I always mention it to the principal. Just because I'm going, I'm getting those media permission forms, and for the ones that are actually uploaded and shown, it's a private YouTube channel, but they could be featured on one of those newsletters or in the blog or on the TED Ed Club's YouTube channel, a variety of ways. So you want to let your administrator know about that for sure. Yeah. Will's saying 6 to 7 months. Me too. I just find quality takes time.
Okay, I'm gonna just take over for just a quick minute, and then I'll turn things back to you in case there are any final questions or comments. Elke and Megan, thank you so much for bringing this to all of us. I'm very excited about the whole idea of TED Ed Talks. It almost makes me wish I had a classroom again, but almost. You did a great job tonight. I think you broke it down for us. You gave us the rationale for us. You gave us tons of resources and motivation to do this, and all the right reasons for doing this with kids. I can only imagine how much they grow through these TED Ed Talk experiences. So thank you so much. It was wonderful. And thank you all of you as well for taking part tonight and participating. I'm going to turn off the recording, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about resources and a little follow-up. Good night, everyone.